So what they talk about bills and legislation being rushed through the houses of the Oireachtas, both Shannon and Dail. So as we've seen many times during the last few years, and especially now in the last few months, legislation has just been rushed through the houses of the Oireachtas, not being given any scrutiny. Like, at least again, any bill should get a bit of scrutiny and should get an opportunity for the opposition, both Sinn Féin, Labour, the Independents, whatever, to scrutinise the government, the Green Party, Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael. Say, for example, it's a bill to, I don't know, it could be a good bill and it could be a bad bill, but take, for example, the emergency powers, COVID powers. They wouldn't give them much time, we have to admit it. They would have given them about an hour or two to argue against the legislation, and obviously a good lot of people opposed the COVID legislation. Obviously Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, they have the numbers to, it was passed anyway because they voted for it. But the people who opposed legislation, obviously I opposed it a lot too, but it wasn't given the proper scrutiny. Like, at that level, again, given the powers to Garda Síochána, to the Minister for Stephen Donnelly, the Minister for Health, the amount of powers that were given, it should at least been a week or two of legislation. People been arguing, saying, this is the wrong thing to do. And, it should have been a week or two of it, because it's that extreme legislation, that extreme power, that it should have been. Again, it wasn't. It was only given by 2 hours, and the people who were scrutinising was very little time given to them to scrutinise it. And obviously the government didn't even want that. They didn't even want to give them the time to scrutinise any bit of the bill. They were going to just push it through, and without any questions being asked. And we've seen this with the Climate Action Bill too. It was just rushed through the houses of the Oireachtas. It was just rushed through it. Like, literally, I didn't even know it was passed. I didn't even watch it on Dail because I didn't even know, because it was out of the blue. It came up out of the blue, and it was voted through very quickly, and nobody had a clue it was that quickly passed before anybody knew. Like, I didn't even know the week beforehand. Usually I check every week to see what's on the topic of the Dail, or the Shannon, and I didn't even know. I might be totally honest with you. It was just rushed through. It was just rushed through without any scrutiny. There was a bit of scrutiny. I did look it up, but there was a bit of scrutiny, obviously, from the Independents, Matthew McGrath, Danny Healy-Way, Michael Healy-Way, because it will affect farmers. It will affect farmers the most. It will affect the suckler herd, and it will affect them a lot, and it will hurt their pockets, and obviously it has hurt their pockets already as we speak. And again, and these big TDs from the city saying it's going to, it's not going to affect rural Ireland. This is in the interest of rural Ireland. Well, I don't know where their TDs are coming from, but anyway, let them sit in the high castles. But again, this is the thing. We need to give proper time for members of Dail and the members of Shannon to scrutinise these legislation or these bills. Either they be good or bad, to have a proper debate, and give whatever time is necessary for the proper debate. Even if they have to stay there all night to scrutinise it, it should be the best interest of the people they represent. I'm sure people would agree, every one of us, would be the best interest. We don't pay them to sit in Dail to sit there with like dummies. We pay them to argue for the people of their constituency. Take, for example, Matthew McGrath, Tipperary. He's there. He's, in fairness to Matthew McGrath, he's one of the best probably in Dail, and he's arguing all the time for things in Tipperary. And he's not holding back from the government, and that's what we need: people who won't hold back and who will argue their point until the cows come home. He just keep arguing his point, and he won't stand down from his point, and that's people we need in Dail. Not like people in Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil who have no morals, who have no dignity, have nothing at all, and the only thing they care about is when the bondholders or whenever their banks are being threatened, or the landlords. That's the only time they ever care. But again, this is the thing we need to ask ourselves, that in a democracy there should be proper scrutiny of every bill, even though it could be good. Say, for example, every person who gets under a 10,000 a year in money from the state or either social welfare or anything like that, take for example the broaden the bill that people get support for having the car if they get under €10,000 a year. Right, you might be saying that's very good, and they get support. Say they get something like 200 and something for tax and for insurance for them to pay towards the car. I'd be sitting here and I'd be saying that's fair enough, but again, where's this money going to come out of? Who's going to pay it? Who's going to flip the bill, in other words? And they have to scrutinise that in the Dáil, even though it's good. It would be a good idea. But again, where's the money going to come out of? Who's going to get the money? How will we know if they're eligible? And etc, etc, etc. And how's the money going to be paid out? How often is the money going to be paid out? How's it going to work out? What happens if somebody tries to slip the system, or try to try to control the system or whatever? Again, this is the proper scrutiny needs to be had. Take for example if that bill was in the door, instead of just washing it through as they do. But again, this is the thing. They usually the government parties usually have all the power because they're the majority. Fine Gael, Fianna Fáil, the Green Party, they have the majority in Dáil, even though Sinn Féin has 32 TDs. Sinn Féin is the biggest opposition party, obviously. The government still have the numbers. The government still have the numbers because that Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, the two, big enough party. They lost a lot of members, which is good to say. But they have the Green Party. The Green Party is really just propping the whole lot of them up. Because if the Green Party wasn't there, the emergency powers wouldn't have been passed. So we have to be totally honest, because it was very, very close. If it was the Green Party, then in the end they got it over the line. Because Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael wouldn't have had the numbers, they probably would have been a draw, because they didn't have any independents, they didn't have any other party supporting them. But yeah, so yeah, that's just my opinion on it. Let me know what you're thinking. Bye.